Andiyan na? Ano mic ka? Narinig mo?
Hello, devotees, friends and guests.
Hello.
It is my distinct honor to introduce our guest speaker tonight. He underwent seminary formation for 7 years at San Carlos Seminary in Makati City and was a student of Monsignor Jerry Santos, who was his spiritual director. When I mentioned to Monsignor Jerry yesterday that Brother Michael will be our guest speaker, he said, "Oh yes, he was one of the bright students of mine in seminary."
Bakit hindi nagtuloy?
He has been with Xavier School in San Juan City, serving various capacities, and presently a human resources director.
HR.
He authored several books, one of which won as the best book in liturgy in the 2017 Cardinal Sin Catholic Book Awards.
Wow.
He was also a contributing author in publications of Jesuits magazines, and in the book Pueblo Amante de Maria, the Filipinos' love for Mary. He has been assisting parishes in the Archdiocese of Manila, Diocese of Antipolo, Caloocan, Malolos, Pasig, and San Pablo in updating their novenas to their patron saints. You know, one of our former guest priests in the parish, Monsignor Father King, King Sardegna, he also mentioned to us that he was also his teacher or mentor in Sambeda in the subject of popular religiosities, and he was impressed. Cainta Catholic College, his alma mater, honored him with Outstanding Alumni Award in 2010. He wrote research papers on the Black Nazarene and was given recognition by the Franciscan Friars of St. Anthony Shrine in Sampaloc for writing the book on the Virgen Peregrina. We heard him talk in the Plaridel Congress of St. James Parishes last month, and he was greatly applauded by the delegates. I asked him after the conference if he is a priest, and he said, nearly a priest. He is happily married with 4 children. Brothers and sisters, let us welcome Brother Michael de los Reyes.
Thank you, Brother Benji, and good evening to everyone. So I am happy to be part of this gathering, regular gathering of the Confraternity of St. James.
Yeah, okay.
So to begin my sharing, so let me share my screen.
Can I remind everybody to mute, please, so that we have a clearer voice from Brother Michael?
Okay. So what I will be sharing tonight, so I told Brother Benji that I chose the title Devotion to Santiago, A Walking with and After Christ. Basically, many of the things that I will share is what I have shared to the Congress, because I think it's really worth sharing to the group, no, especially those who were not able to be part of the Congress. But at the same time, I also added a few updates, no, and a few more items for reflection. As I shared in the Congress, because I was really struck, no, by the gathering, by the Congress, by the invitation, because this is the first time that I've seen a congress about a saint. No, in fact, an apostle. No, most of the congresses that I am aware of would be, of course, Marian congresses, and of course, you have Eucharistic congresses. No? Now, it invited me to take a look at my own devotion to Saint James in a way. No, in a way, I can say I have that devotion because every Holy Week before the pandemic, no, and maybe this time also, I used to be the one to dress up the processional image of my sister-in-law, the image of Saint James the Greater, that participates in the Holy Week procession in Santo Tomas de Villanueva Parish in Santolan, Pasig City. No, in fact, when she was planning to have an image made, I suggested Saint James, no, because later on you will see his placement among the apostles. And then through time, I'm able to gather these small images of Saint James. The one on the right, I think, it was given to me by the carver in Paete, Paloy, Cagayat. And I think he told me it was a replica that was commissioned by the Alabang Parish. I think that's what he told me, no?
Yes.
And I think maybe it was your souvenir for the Congress. And then I still have these few more images of St. James. No, the last one I was able to get as a souvenir during my first visit to Ibaan, especially when I found out that it is the patron saint is St. James. No, and incidentally, they are the host of the next Congress. No. I also tried to recall the St. James churches that I visited, and I shared in the Congress. The first one was Plaridel, because as a seminarian, a very young and new seminarian, we were brought to Plaridel by one of the the older seminarian who lives in Plaridel and is now a priest in Bulacan, Father Dennis Espejo. And then after I left the seminary, and Monsignor Jerry Santos became parish priest of Alabang, he also invited me during his installation. And that was the first time that I have seen and I was able to go to your parish, St. James the Greater Parish in Ayala, Alabang. I hope to be able to go back to your parish. No? And then, of course, the carving capital of the Philippines is especially for holy images. The patron saint is also Santiago in Paete, Laguna. And when I was invited in Pampanga, I was able to visit Betis, whose patron saint and titular of the church is also Santiago Apostol. So in my recollection, I've been to Santiago churches, and the last one I visited was in Ibaan. It was late last year, around October, no, when I was in Ibaan, Batangas. I also shared to the Congress, and it would be good, no, and I think we owe this information to the parish of St. James in Alabang, to your parish, because you were the organizer of the first Congress. And because of that Congress, you were able to gather or make a sort of directory of the parishes under the titularship of St. James the Greater. No? And we will see here that we have around 50 parishes already all over the Philippines. No? So we start with Luzon. And in the ecclesiastical province of Cáceres, there are 5. In the ecclesiastical province of Lingayen, Dagupan, there are 2. In Lipa, there's 1. In Manila, there's 5. And then in Nueva Segovia, there's 4. In San Fernando, Pampanga, 3. And in Tuguegarao, 2. And in the Apostolic Vicariate of Tabuk, 1. So they comprise the 50 St. James parishes in the Philippines. And I told the Congress participants and the organizer in Plaridel, I hope in the future Congress, all the parishes will have representation. No? And hopefully that will happen sometime in the future. In Visayas, so we have Cebu, and then Haro and Palo. No? So 10 in Cebu, 2 in Haro, and 7 in Palo. And then in Mindanao, we have 3 in Cagayan de Oro, 3 in Davao, and 2 in Osamis. So, although I have not really made research on the statistics of parishes named after the apostles, I would like to think this is a lot, no? This is a lot, being under the patronage of St. James. And then when I tried to look at the foundation years of the parish for those that were indicated in the directory, and as I was sharing to Brother Benji in our preliminary meeting, I had to update this because after the Congress, there were a couple of parishes who responded to my query about the foundation year of their parish. So at least the one with no data has been reduced to 5. So the earliest would be in the 1500s. And then we will see a jump, no, in the numbers in the 1600s, and then in the 1800s and in the 1900s. And I was also sharing to Brother Benji and the group that I met with that one reason why St. James is made patron saint of a parish or titular is because, especially during the Spanish time, he's the patron saint of Spain. So, of course, the Spanish friars would have preference for him to a certain extent. And then right now, and this has changed since the Congress, because in the Congress, the data that I have is the oldest was Libmanan, the Cathedral of St. James in Libmanan. But this parish from Libon, Albay, responded to my query, and I found out their foundation year was 1573. So far, they are the oldest St. James Parish in the Philippines. While the youngest is the one that was inaugurated or canonically erected last year in Tarlac, in La Paz, Tarlac, no? In Barangay Rizal, La Paz, Tarlac. Now, in terms of titles and privileges, 2 cathedrals are named after St. James, the one in Banged, Abra, and Libmanan, Camarines Sur. We have 2 archdiocesan shrines, the one in Compostela, Cebu, and Ibaan, Batangas. And 2 have their spiritual affinity with Santiago de Compostela Basilica, the one in Paete, Laguna, and the one in Compostela, Cebu. Now, for our reflection tonight, as I also did the same in the Congress, I would like to use as a guide the catechesis of the late Pope Benedict XVI on St. James the Greater in 2006. Now, during that year, every general audience that he conducted, he would give a catechesis on an apostle. And on June 21, he gave the catechesis on St. James the Greater. So we will make use of his reflection, but at the same time, add a few things to it so that it can be contextualized, especially in our context. I think it's a good review for us, that to remember that the apostles were chosen directly by Jesus during his earthly life. And it's important to note that in the biblical list of the apostles, the 12, they mention people with this name, James, son of Zebedee, and James, son of Alphaeus. So there are 2 James who are part of the 12 apostles, and they are distinguished by their nicknames, James the Greater and James the Lesser. So these titles are certainly not intended to measure their holiness, but simply to state the different importance that they received in the writings of the New Testament, and in particular in the setting of Jesus' earthly life. Let's take a look at the name of James, no? Because especially in the Bible, the names would, in a way, tell already what will be the life of that person. No? So like, for example, the name of Jesus in Hebrew is Yeshua, which means Yahweh saves. No? And that has been the mission Jesus in his earthly life, no? To be the savior of the world. So the word Santiago actually came from the Spanish word Santo Yago, and Yago is the old Spanish form of James, and that's why when contracted it became Santiago. So therefore, because sometimes I would see that in some parishes, especially in processions of Holy Week, they would say San Santiago, which is a redundant title, no? Because the San in Santiago is already a saint, no? Saint James. Now, the name Jacob is from the Latin Jacob, which was from the Greek Jacob, which was from the Hebrew Yaakov. In the Old Testament, Jacob, later who became Israel, who came to be called Israel, is the son of Isaac and Rebekah, and the father of the 12 founders of the 12 tribes of Israel. So how did Jacob get his name, no? He has a twin brother, Esau, no? Now, the first to emerge was reddish, and this was the description, no? And his whole body was like a hairy mantle, so they named him Esau. Next, his brother came out, gripping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. So the name Yaakov means literally holder of the heel, because Jacob was holding the heel of his older brother Esau. But also, the name Jacob means supplanter, or someone who substitutes, no, who replaces. Why? Because in his life, he twice deprived his older brother, his rights as the firstborn. In one occasion, like the one you see in the painting, Esau came from hunting from the wilderness, and he was very hungry, and he saw Jacob cooking a meal, and he asked for some food, no, for some meal, no. But Jacob asked him, first give me your right as the firstborn. And Esau, out of hunger, gave up his right to Jacob. But the more serious one was when Isaac was very, very old and he could not see anymore clearly, and he was about to give his blessing to Esau, whom he asked to go hunting so that he can cook his favorite food before he gives the blessing. The mother of Jacob, because his favorite is Jacob, made Jacob pretend to be Esau. And so the short story would be he was able to get the blessing before it was even given to Esau. No, he pretended to be Esau, and because of that, Esau became very angry, and he shouted when he found out, "He is well named Jacob, is he not? He has supplanted me twice. First, he took away my right as firstborn, and now he has taken away my blessing." Then he said, "Have you not saved a blessing for me?" So that's just a background in terms of the name of James. No? So now let's take a look at James in the Gospel tradition. The first thing that we should notice is that in the list of apostles, James comes second immediately after Peter in the Gospel according to Mark, and in the third place after Peter and Andrew in the Gospel according to Matthew and according to Luke. while in the Acts of the Apostles, he comes after Peter and John. So these biblical books of the New Testament would have the listing of the apostles, and we see that James would be in a sort of prominent position in the listing of the apostles. Now, I think we are very much aware that one of the titles of these brothers, James and John, is the word Boanerges, no? Which means sons of thunder. And it is according to this incident that when the days for Jesus' being taken up were fulfilled, he resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On the way, they entered a Samaritan village to prepare for his reception there, but they would not welcome him because the destination of his journey was Jerusalem. So we know that Samaritans are in conflict with the Jews, no? That's why they would not allow Jesus to enter their village. No? And when the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked the Lord, Lord, you want us to call down from fire from heaven to consume them. Jesus, however, turned and rebuked them, and they journeyed to another village. So that's one characteristic of James, not together with his brother. No? They have that bravery, courage, no, and that's why they're called Boanerges, or sons of thunder. Now, another important thing to take to mind when we speak of James the Apostle, James the Greater, is that he belongs together with Peter and John to the group of the three privileged disciples whom Jesus admitted to important moments in his life. And we have these incidents: the raising of Jairus' daughter from the dead, the transfiguration of the Lord, and the agony in the garden of Gethsemane. Now, of course, James started to become a disciple when he was called by Jesus. No? We are very familiar with this gospel passage about the call of the first apostles. No?
Can I ask the others to please mute their computers?
Yeah. Thank you.
Please go on, brother.
So just like Peter and Andrew, James and John were also called by the Lord, no, along the seashore when they were mending their nets, no, and according to the account, they immediately followed. They left their boat and their father, and they followed Jesus, no. Now, in the Roman martyrology, this is the official list of saints recognized by the church. We see this description of the Feast of St. James. So it says there, Feast of St. James, July 25, Apostle, son of Zebedee, and brother of St. John the Evangelist, who together with Peter and John was witness to the transfiguration of the Lord and his agony. Beheaded by Herod Agrippa near the feast of Easter, he received first among the apostles the crown of martyrdom. And that's why in our reflection tonight, we will focus on these two incidents mentioned in the martyrology when the Apostle James, together with Peter and John, were in the two incidents, that's the transfiguration and the agony in the garden. So let's take a look at the transfiguration. So in summary, what we can say is that James, together with Peter and John, were witnesses to the glory of Jesus shown in the transfiguration. We will have to remember that before this passage, before this incident, Jesus made a prediction about his passion and death. And the biblical scholars are saying the transfiguration happened so that they can be sort of strengthened, by that prediction that he can also be, and he will also be glorified. So James, together with the other two apostles, experiences the Lord's glory and sees him talking to Moses and Elijah. He sees the divine splendor shining out in Jesus. Although walang dialogue si St. James, no, it was only Peter who made a dialogue during that incident wherein he offered to build 3 tents, no, for the three, Jesus, Elijah, and Moses, no, because he wanted to stay there, no. He wanted to linger in the glory of the Lord at the Transfiguration. And then after the Transfiguration, this incident happened, no? And of course, I would like to believe, as devotees of St. James, you might be familiar with this, no? The ambition of James and John. No? There are 2 accounts on 2 Gospels. No? The one in Mark puts the request as coming from the 2 brothers. No? So that they said that, grant that in your glory we may sit one at your right and the other at your left. Now, in the Gospel according to Matthew, it was the mother who made the request, no? And tradition calls the mother Salome, no? So she said to Jesus, command that these 2 sons of mine sit, one at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom. Whoever said it, what happened is that, of course, the other apostles got angry, no? And the response of Jesus was this: whoever wishes to be great among you will be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you will be the slave of all. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So the response of Jesus to the ambition of the 2 brothers, including James, no, was servanthood. Because that will be the example that he will give to his disciples, to his apostles. And then the other important event in the life of Jesus were St. James, together with Peter and John, were with Jesus, no, was in the agony in the garden. As we will recall in the biblical account, in the gospel account of the Passion of the Lord, he was with his disciples, with the apostles, but when he went into the inner part of the garden, he brought with him only the 3, Peter, James, and John. So according to the account, Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, sit here while I go over there and pray. He took along Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee and began to feel sorrow and distress. Then he said to them, my soul is sorrowful even to death. Remain here and keep watch with me. So in the agony in the garden, James finds himself face to face with suffering and humiliation. He sees with his own eyes how the Son of God humbles himself, making himself obedient unto death. This experience was certainly an opportunity for him to grow in faith, to adjust the unilateral triumphalist interpretation of the Transfiguration experience. Because in the Transfiguration, he saw the glory of Jesus, but here he also saw the weakness, the time that Jesus is very vulnerable in his life. James had to discern that the Messiah whom the Jewish people were awaiting as a victor was in fact not only surrounded by honor and glory, but also by suffering and weakness. Christ's glory was fulfilled precisely on the cross in his sharing in our sufferings. So as we would always say, per crucem ad lucem, no? Or in Filipino, we will say, walang linggo ng pagkabuhay kung walang Biyernes Santo. At the same time, we should recall and we should always remember that Holy Week is not only about Good Friday, no? Because in terms of our tradition and in terms of our activities in the church, in the parishes, it's very much Good Friday is very heavy, no? Even the procession of the Santo Entierro is very long in most parishes. But when you come to the Easter Sunday, the Salubong, you only have a very few people joining the procession. So sometimes people would say that Filipino Catholics are still Good Friday Christians because they have not made Easter Sunday a true part of the Paschal Triduum, when in fact it is the last part of the Paschal Triduum that we celebrate every year, no? And this coming Holy Week. Now, according to tradition, and this was also attested to in the Acts of the Apostles.
Sweetheart?
So this growth of faith of St. James was brought to completion by the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, so that James, when the moment of supreme witness came, would not draw back. Early in the 1st century, in the 40s, King Herod Agrippa, the grandson of Herod the Great, as Luke tells us, laid violent hands upon some of those who belonged to the church, and he had James, the brother of John, killed by the sword. So we know that he was the first to be martyred among the apostles, no? He who initially had requested through his mother to be seated with his brother next to the master in his kingdom was precisely the first to drink the chalice of the passion and to share martyrdom with the apostles. So here, his pledge to Jesus, that when Jesus asked them, "Can you drink the cup that I will drink?" No, the cup of the chalice that I will drink. No, they said yes. No, and here it really happened. No, he was able to drink the chalice of the passion. No, and share in the martyrdom in the Paschal mystery of Jesus. Now, moving further, no, outside the New Testament, one of the description and representation of St. James is being a caballero, no, because he is shown. This is the image of the Santiago Matamoros, because of the apparition in Clavijo, in terms of assuring the Spanish people that they will be saved from the invasion of the Moors, no? I tried to look for the interpretation of caballero in a Spanish website, no, the Real Academia of the Espanol, where they have a dictionary, and I tried to look at their description of a caballero, so that in a way we can try to understand also how it relates to St. James. No? Of course, literally it means mounted on a horse or another animal, because Santiago Matamoros is mounted on a horse, so definitely it makes him a caballero. Now, when said of a person, it can also mean stubborn, who is not dissuaded by any consideration. It can also mean a man who behaves with distinction, nobility, and generosity, as a treatment of respect or courtesy to address a man. So when you use the word caballero, it's like a treatment of respect or courtesy that you address to a man. And I think that this last one really connects with Santiago, no? One who wandered the world looking for adventures and served as a prototype for the books of chivalry. So wandering in the world, no, reaching as far as Gaul or Spain, no, that is Santiago, a true caballero. Now, as I have shared in the Congress, someone who is devoted to St. James should also be devoted to the Blessed Mother, because the Blessed Mother played an important part in his mission in Spain. As you may know, no, the appearance of the Blessed Mother in Spain to St. James is not an apparition. we can actually call it a bilocation because at that time, the Blessed Mother was still alive, maybe in Ephesus, together with Saint John. And therefore, when she made herself presence felt, no, by Saint James, it is an assurance of his mission that will be successful. And according to tradition, this is what Our Lady said to Saint James: "My son James, this place, the Most High and Omnipotent God of heaven, has destined to be consecrated by thee upon earth for the erection of a church and house of prayer, where under my patronage and name, he wishes to be glorified and magnified, where the treasures of his right hand shall be opened up for all the faithful through my intercession, if they ask for them in true faith and sincere piety." This column, so it refers to that column that is now venerated in the Cathedral of Saragossa with an image of the Virgen del Pilar, no? Madonna and Child. No? So this column with my image placed upon it shall be a pledge of this truth and of my promise. In the church which thou shalt build for me, it shall remain and be preserved until the end of the world. Thou shalt immediately begin to build this church, and after thou hast completed it, thou shalt depart for Jerusalem. So the establishment of a church is an indication that you have already formed a Christian community. No? Very much like in our present practice, no? In many villages, in many subdivisions where they have regular masses during weekends, once the community has been formed, after some time, they will petition to become a parish. No? So in a way, that's the indication that the mission of St. James in Spain became successful because he was able to establish the church, which is now the Cathedral of Saragossa, no? Which was the mark, the sign of the Blessed Mother, assuring her maternal presence, her maternal support to the mission of St. James in that part of the world. And when we speak of our devotion to the Blessed Mother as Filipino people, I believe you have always heard of this, Pueblo Amante de Maria. We are a Pueblo Amante de Maria. And I would like to share to you what our bishop said in 1999 in their pastoral letter, Landas ng Pagpapakabanal. It's about the Filipino spirituality. They said that kung may isang bagay na namumukod tangi sa landas ng pagpapakabanal ng Katolikong Pilipino, ito marahil ay walang iba kundi ang paglapit natin kay Kristo sa pamamagitan ni Maria. At dahil tanggap na natin ito, hindi na natin ikinababahala. Sa katunayan, sa maraming sulok ng bansa, naging isa sa mga pinaka-epektibong paraan ng paghubog at pagpapalaganap sa mabuting balita ng Panginoong Jesucristo ang debosyon sa mahal na Birhen. Ang malalim na debosyon sa mahal na ina ay nananatiling isa sa mga pinakamatinding lakas na nagpapanatiling buhay sa pananampalatayang Pilipino at Katoliko. And I would like to emphasize this part. Si Maria, kumbaga, ay parang pataba sa lupang inihahandang matamnan ng binhi ng mabuting balita ng kaharian ng Diyos. Madalas tayo na rin ang nagkukulang sa pagbibigay panahon upang mahasikan ng binhi ang matabang lupa na matagal nang inihanda ng mahal na Birhen. And maybe this can also be found in the experience of St. James, no? The presence of the Blessed Mother, no, in his mission assured that it will be successful because, as described by our bishops, no, Mary is like the fertilizer that will make the ground rich and ready for the planting of the seed of the kingdom of God through the good news. And of course, one characteristic of the devotion to St. James is the Camino de Santiago, which of course we try to replicate in our parishes. especially if we're not able to go to Santiago de Compostela. And right now that the church has been discussing the synodality, the Camino de Santiago becomes very significant and important. The journey that St. James had undertaken was not only exterior but above all interior. From the Mount of the Transfiguration to the Mount of the Agony symbolizes the entire pilgrimage of Christian life among the persecutions of the world and the consolations of God in following Jesus. Like St. James, we know that even in difficulties, we are on the right path. There is this saying, which was quoted by Bishop Ambo David in his talk to the Federation of Asian Bishops Conference when he spoke about synodality. He quoted this from a literary piece, I think the title is Caminante. And the line says, Caminando no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Translated, it means walking, there is no path. The path is made by walking. I think the experience of the pandemic for the last more than 2 years, we recall ourselves at the start when we don't know where we will end up. But what did we count on? We count on our faith in God, because we cannot count on anything else. We are locked down in our own homes and houses. We cannot go so much far. I don't know if during the lockdown, you did your own camino in your own houses, from the kitchen to the living room to the bathroom to the bedroom, etc. So because you cannot do a camino outside the house, but we are here together all now, and I think we have in a way lived out this passage, Caminando no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. We were able to make a path by walking, by going through the pandemic. But we were not alone. We were with Jesus. Now, maybe you will recall the special Urbe et Orbe message of Pope Francis in 2020, when he used the gospel account of the storm at the lake. So the boat where the apostles were in was battered by the storm, and they were afraid. But Jesus was with them. And Jesus calmed the storm for them, And Jesus told them, have you no faith? Why are you afraid? And I think that was our experience. We were all afraid, but we were able to survive the pandemic, and we're still surviving, and hopefully we'll be able to be successful. Now, when we speak of devotion to Santiago and to the saints, this is what the church teaches. The church has also included in the annual cycle days devoted to the memory of the martyrs and the other saints, raised up to perfection by the manifold grace of God and already in possession of eternal salvation. They sing God's perfect praise in heaven and offer prayers for us. By celebrating the passage of the saints from earth to heaven, the Church proclaims the Paschal mystery achieved in the saints who have suffered and been glorified with Christ. She proposes them to the faithful as examples, drawing all to the Father through Christ, and through their merits she pleads for God's favors. So that's the essence of our devotion to the saints. Aside from in their intercession, they are our examples of following Christ. Now, of course, part of the devotions that we have would be the patronage of the saints. And when I tried to look up what St. James is being invoked for, so first, it says that he is the patron par excellence of pilgrims. Definitely, no, because of the association with the Camino de Santiago. So that was a great pilgrimage in the Catholic Church. No, he's also the patron of crusaders, cavalrymen, and all who travel by horse. So understandably, because of the Santiago Matamoros image. And he's also a patron of those who are at the point of death and those who are hanged, no? Because according to legend, he helped someone who was hanged, no? And then he's also a patron of pharmacists, merchants of chemicals, grocers who are assisting pilgrims, no? So I think this is all because of the pilgrims that go to Santiago de Compostela. And if you notice, no, as a pilgrim, he sometimes wear a hat, the wide-brimmed hat, and because of that, he has become patron of hatters and also those who make shoes and clogs, no? Because these are what you need to travel to go on pilgrimage. Well, I don't know about clogs. If you do the Camino with clogs, I don't know what happens to your feet. And then this was shared by Brother Benji before, no, against rheumatism. Well, according to the description, because the pilgrims, especially in the olden times, they would spend the night outside, and therefore they're exposed to cold, no, and then heat in the morning, no, and it will end up with rheumatism, no. So that's why he's invoked against rheumatism, and he's invoked for abundant apple harvest, because I think the harvest happened during the time of his feast day in July. But more than being a patron, well, just to describe pala this picture, no, that I found also, you will see Saint James riding a horse, but on the horse, he is also carrying pilgrims. So he was helping pilgrims to travel, no? And I think that's why he's really considered the patron of par excellence of the pilgrims. But more than being a patron saint only, as mentioned to us by Sacrosanctum Concilium and taught by the church, no, we should see the example of the saints. And what example do we see in the life of Saint James? He started to follow Jesus when he was invited, and it stirred into him a change of heart, a metanoia, suddenly leaving his way of life as a fisherman and following Jesus. And that's when he became a disciple, because discipulus means a follower. But later on, he was one of the 12 that was chosen by Jesus to be sent. And that's why they have the title apostolos, which means the one sent, no? And they were sent as witnesses to the Paschal mystery of Jesus, no? Because the commissioning of the apostles happened again at the ascension, when Jesus told them, be my witnesses to the ends of the earth. And at that point, the witnessing that they have would already include the suffering, death, and the resurrection of Jesus. And that witnessing became foundational in the establishment of the church. And also the example of being a peregrino, reaching out as far as Spain, no, to bring the good news, no. And all his life, what James has been doing was to walk with and after Jesus Christ. So that's the best example that Saint James can give us, no, in his life, no, in the Gospels that we find, and what we believe he has done, no, according to tradition, that ended up founding a church in Spain, but at the same time later on giving his life in Jerusalem. So that's where we are also encouraged to follow, no, to be an apostle, no. We start with a change of heart when we become a devotee of Saint James, And by being a devotee, we become a disciple of Jesus, and then hopefully we become to be sent, no, as devotees of Saint James and disciple of the Lord, and we become a pilgrim on this earth, because life on earth is a pilgrimage towards the house of the Father. Viva Santiago Apostol, and
Viva.
good evening to everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mike.
My brother.
At this point in time, I invite everybody to bring out any questions or added comments about the presentation and the PowerPoint display by Brother Mike. The floor is open for anybody who has questions. But let's give Mike a chance to have a gulp of water for talking for almost an hour. Okay, anybody wants to give a comment or?
Sige. Okay. Jan? Jan Pagulong, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
good evening po to everyone.
Good evening.
And thank you po,
Good evening.
Brother Michael, for sharing a very comprehensive discussion on Santiago. But until now, I'm still wondering, in Filipino language, there is a word that is not in good definition or connotation used by many of us, the word GAGO. I don't know, given the origin of the name of Santiago, and given that the Spaniards were here for more than 300 years, and as a patron of the Spaniards, is there any correlation of that
That
original
word.
Yago or that remark? Because in the second definition that you found in that dictionary, it is something that is not good too. So I'm not sure. I'm also doing my research about it until now, because even in Rizal, Noli Me Tangere, Kapitian Tiago, as a character that pertains perhaps to Santiago as a leader, as a patron. So even Rizal recognizes Santiago's role in the Philippine history in the community. So now, going back to the question, meron po bang connection
Connection.
yung Yago to the terms that we used to? Because parang yung positive or very good word attribute to the saint before is really a positive one, but then it turned out today to a different meaning, which I don't know, instead of recognizing it is a saint, but it's now a different one. Meron po bang ano yun? Or nag-evolve lang talaga yung word na yun? Or
I have not encountered anything yet so far, no, but it made me think now, could it be related, no, to the Yago, no? Maybe that's something that we should look into, no, because of course we should look at the etymology of the word, no. But that's something I have not yet encountered, but I hope I'll be able to find a connection, or
nga po.
hopefully no
Kasi-
connection. Hopefully no connection.
Oo nga po. Kasi parang parang there are times today that good words, or originally a good word in an origin, becomes now something bad, or it evolves. Like the example, not really bad, but the use of the word mouse. Mouse before is a simple animal or a pest. Ayaw natin yan. Pangit yan. But being pangit as a pest, today it's very useful, especially during the pandemic. The mouse is a very wonderful equipment with your desktop or with your gadget. So
Yeah.
from the negative connotation or definition or denotation, it becomes now a positive one. So parang iniisip ko, I don't know kung ganun ba nangyari sa salitang yon, kasi Yago siya. Tapos siguro yung Y na yan, hindi pa ma-pronounce sa mga Pilipino noon, naging G. So nag-evolve siya. I'm still wondering. So it's still a big question mark, or a big something for me to, I don't know until when.
Yeah, but that's really possible that it was something good before, and there are words before, and you know, you can find examples of this in the Pasyong Mahal. Now that we are in the spirit of Lent, in the Lenten season, no? Because if you read the Pasyong Mahal has never been revised or updated. That's my wish now, how someone can look into the Passion, how it can be revised to make it aligned according to the gospel, because and also the language. Now we have certain words in the Passion which are not anymore understandable or will have a negative meaning in our present language, no? So, but if you look at how it is used in the Passion, it simply means, well, I'll give one example, no? Isinalsal yung krus, which means isinuksok dun sa butas para itayo yung krus. But if you use that among the youth, no? Well, even the older ones, they know another meaning for that word, di ba? It has a negative meaning, no? And also they use kinadyot, no? And other words in the Passion. That's why I think it should be looked into, hopefully, so that it can be made more aligned with the present generation.
Father,
Thank you po, Brother Michael. Thank you po. Thank you.
Brother, if I may just make a comment, no? What struck me strongly about the quotations you brought up, no, is that quotation of walking, there is no path, the path is made by walking. No? I think that's so meaningful to me. It just struck me as meaningful because I think often we are praying to God to show us the way, you know, and before we do anything, show us the way, because I want to make sure it's the right way, you know. But like that saying says, no, if you really believe the Lord is with you, start walking and the path will appear to you as you move on. No? You don't wait for the path to be cemented and clear in your mind, but in faith, start walking and the path will appear as you move on. No? I found that very touching.
Yes. And one image I had of that is if you are on a mountain and it's full of talahib grass, diba? You know the talahib, they grow so tall, so you don't know where you are, no? But how do you make way? Diba? Those who are in the mountain, they have the karet or they have the bolo. They would cut the talahib as they make way. So once they have passed that, there's a way already, no? Because there's someone who dared to journey that unknown path. No, you don't know where it will lead to. And of course, when we speak of that along the lines of faith, we make that brave walking without path because we have faith.
Amen.
Amen. Does anybody else have any questions, comments? Yeah, Benji, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, just yesterday, I received a suggestion from a delegate who went to Plaridel. And he mentioned that maybe we can consider including in the Congress parishes also whose patroness would be Our Lady of the Pillar. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Well, because of the close connection between St. James and Our Lady of the Pillar, that would be something good to explore, I think, no? And that's really putting Marian devotion, as I tried to emphasize also in my sharing tonight, no, that a Santiago devotee should also be a Marian devotee, because St. James' life was marked by the presence of the maternal presence and assuring presence of the Blessed Virgin Mary. So that's something good, no? I think, no, to explore. You just have maybe make the mechanics on how to go about it, because I've been to some Del Pilar parishes, like the one in Pilar, Bataan, and there is an image of St. James, no, a replica of sorts of what we have in Santiago de Compostela, the one who is seated, no, the seated St. James, no. So I think there should always be that close connection, no, I remember in my research, there used to be a Santiago church just outside the Intramuros. But when the churches around Intramuros were destroyed upon the order of the Governor General because of it's a threat. It can be used by enemies who wants to attack Intramuros. So they destroyed all the churches, and one of the churches was the Church of Santiago. It was apparently St. James the Great church outside Intramuros. So it would be good to involve also the Del Pilar parishes. No, I just don't know how many, but I think there are a lot of Del Pilar parishes around the Philippines. No?
Mhm. Thank you. We'll consider that.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments or questions or ideas to share with the group and with Mike? Michael?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Yeah, this is Glo from Ibaan.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you have
In the-
Ibaan.
Yes, in the formulation of our mission and vision, our guest speaker told us to include Del Pilar in the celebration. And so we have the image of Del Pilar, Nuestra Del Pilar in our altar. And we also celebrate the feast day
The
on
feast day.
October.
12, yeah.
Yeah, October 12. And then when we shout Viva Santiago, immediately we shout also the Viva del Pilar.
Yun.
So we notice in Plaridel, Bulacan that very few parishes shouted Viva del Pilar after Viva Santiago. So in Ibaan, we do practice. We have close devotion also to Nuestra del Pilar because of the belief that Mama Mary was the one who inspired Saint James to make his faith, to renew his faith, and to spread the gospel.
Yes.
So that's one clear example
Yeah.
of the merging of the Del Pilar devotion with Santiago devotion.
Yes.
I would like to think it will be further strengthened no, if you have these two.
Oh, nakita mo na. Yeah, that's a good idea, Gloria. Thank you for suggesting it.
Thank you, po.
In our parish, there is a big statue of Saint James facing the Our Lady of Pilar statue.
Nasa post
Already. Yes.
In Libmanan, no, Santiago is the cathedral, and they have made a secondary patroness, I think, the Virgen del Pilar of Libmanan, which is located in, the image is found in another church, San Isidro Labrador, but it's the image is enshrined there. And they have a celebration also during the Feast of St. James. I think they also bring out in procession the image of the Del Pilar. So there are actually certain practices in different parishes that would merge, that would connect the devotion to the Del Pilar and the devotion to St. James. So that would be a good idea to make it part of the Congress also. Why not, no?
Thank you. Okay, are there any other comments or questions for Michael or?
It's John Pagulong.
Yeah.
Yes po. Can I just have one question po? Is there existing unifying novena prayers for Santiago in the Philippines? Or each parishes has its own prayers, especially during the novena? Because I'm just thinking, if a novena that is used by all parishes, that could be said in any languages, whether it's Waray or in Cebuano or in Tagalog, but it's just one, meaning to say it could be translated to several languages, but there's just one version. Because I don't know, I'm not sure. Meron po ba, Brother Michael, na ano, parang
I have not, and well, I was actually before the Congress, I was actually trying to look for the oldest novena that I can find for St. James, no, because one of my apostolates, as mentioned in the introduction earlier, was to really help parishes update and organize their novenas, no, in accordance with the spirit of Vatican II. But so far, I have not found, well, online. I was trying to look online in the libraries. No, I did not find an old novena yet. No, but I have been thinking that it might be different versions in different places. No, that would be a good idea. No, but maybe the question is whose novena we will follow. So for example, kasi you have this novena from one parish and then another novena, an old parish will have this novena version also. So that would be a question. But if there can be a group that can work on that, that's possible. Then you'll have a sort of mother text to use, no? And then you will have it translated in the different dialects of the country, no? In a way, that's one unifying factor, no? And what I always try to emphasize when I revise the novena, is to always put, and this is in accordance with the directive of the Second Plenary Council of the Philippines, which I think a lot of us don't know already, or the priests have forgotten. But one of their important part of the decrees is that in the novena, you introduce the biblical or gospel readings, because that makes popular piety, like the novena, an instrument of evangelization. Meaning, if the person is only saying the novena, praying the novena, at least there is a reading from the Word of God, no, which brings him into contact already with the Word of God. No? So hopefully that can be done. I've seen the novena being used in St. James in Alabang, and I'm happy to see that there are gospel readings, because you can actually fill up the 9 days with the gospel readings about St. James, no? Because he has a lot of citations in the gospel, so we can use that, no? But yeah, I think that can be a project of the Congress, maybe.
Okay.
No? If the parishes will agree to sort of have a mother novena to follow, no?
Very good idea. I think we have a new assignment to see if we can gather as many of the novenas that there are, and then sit down and sort of sort them out. And in that, we will call on you, Michael, to help us clear this flavor.
Sure.
Okay, I think we're almost